people from all over the city they just got that message, that vision, that picture of redemption and renovation and cleaning out the old and restoration. We had 3 months, but really it ended up being 2 months to get ready, because we wanted to kick off on Super Bowl Sunday, just that whole idea of kicking off and a new start and all that. So we got in there in November and December and stripped this place out, cleaned this place out, and building Sunday school walls where the VIP rooms were. I mean, it was bizarre. Who's going to bring their kids to this place? We got there. It was quite a run, but we got there.
Hey, look out. It's Faith Talk Today. I'm Rick Probst. Welcome to another great show and a stupendous Atlanta weekend. Boy, howdy, do we have a guest today. He's got a book, and we're going to talk about it. You are going to love this. The book is called From Poles to Pews, How America's Most Infamous Strip Club Became a Church. See, I had you right there. Dan Garrett, author and speaker. We'll talk to him in just a second. But first, hey, thank you so much for downloading our podcasts. The are in, and you guys are going crazy with this thing, and it's got to be the guest. And hey, that's okay. That's why I'm here. So we bring you great guests. Keep on downloading the podcasts and pass them along. You can get them, of course, at faithtalkatlanta.com or wherever you get your podcast. Author, speaker, Dan Garrett with us. He's got a book. It's been out since February. From Poles to Pews, How America's Most Infamous Strip Club Became a Church. Dan, welcome.
Thank you. You have a great radio voice and podcast voice.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, Dan. Now, I've heard of you before, but I've never heard the Gold Club story until yesterday, because we were talking about something else. You're involved in so many great things. You're author and speaker. But when they told me about this story, I'm like, yeah, sometime we got to talk to this guy, and bam, here you are. Where do we begin on this whole story?
Well, let me preface that by saying that I've done a few things in my life. I started this conference for parents and teens long ago when kids were having a lot of car wrecks. I was a youth pastor. We started something called Arrive Alive, which would go into the schools. And I spoke to over 1 million students in middle and high schools throughout the 80s. And but I know that no matter what I've done, I've got a picture in my mind that the AJC, you know how when somebody passes, they'll say beloved teacher passes or famous architect, you know. I'm confident that my headline's going to be strip club preacher passes. Because no matter what else I've done, this is how I get introduced everywhere I go. So,
well, hopefully it won't be on your tombstone. So,
no, well, I don't know. With my wife, I don't know. Who knows what that'll be. I told him I want my tombstone to say, "I told you I was sick." So,
that's one of my favorites.
I know.
All right, so we all know the legendary Gold Club. I moved back to Atlanta in the early 90s. I left for a while, and the Gold Club was everywhere. I mean, famous folks, actors, musicians, regular folk showing up at the Gold Club. It was seedy, but it was legendary. And then the FBI came in, shut it down, and you had an opportunity to get the building. Take us from there.
Yeah. So just a little context. So when I started this project and people started hearing about it, I had people who were cab drivers, and then I had businessmen who entertained out-of-town clients. And all of them told me the first place a guy wanted to go when he landed in Atlanta was the Gold Club. It was known everywhere. And there's actually a backstory on that, because they were able to do some things that other clubs weren't able to do around the country, because the Georgia legislature had a little loophole where you could pretty much not have to wear anything in Georgia, whereas in other places you did. So
right.
So it was the hot spot. Well, I was leading a church just below Atlanta for 8 years, and I just felt led to come back. My wife and I had lived in Buckhead when we first got married. I've been in Atlanta since I was 24. And we had lots of friends in Atlanta. And no disrespect, but the only churches that were in Buckhead at that time were for what I would call button-up churches, coat and tie, sort of wealthy. And there seemed to me to be the potential to reach the young crowd who were living in these condos and apartments. A lot of times, the three young ladies who were pooling their money and living in a tiny apartment so they could be in the middle of all the excitement. They weren't necessarily wealthy, and they maybe weren't necessarily comfortable going to those four kind of mainline churches.
Right.
And so I just felt like there was room for maybe something with a little more progressive music and worship style and that sort of thing. So we met at the Atlanta History Center for a few times. We met at Phipps Plaza Theaters a little bit. And we're riding up Piedmont Road, and my wife's with me, and she said, we passed this black box that, was the closed down Gold Club. It closed in 1999. The FBI went in and padlocked it. It had not been opened. And there's grass growing up through the cracks in the pavement. And she said, oh, hey, why don't you look at Gold Club? You could call it God's Club. And I looked at her because she's not a woman that's known for her humor. And so I looked at her and said, yeah, that's pretty funny. And she went, no, I'm serious. So, I made some phone calls. Kim King, the legendary voice of Georgia Tech, he and Wayne Mason had bought the Gold Club from the FBI. Huh. He was one of the largest developers in Atlanta. And I knew a friend that knew Kim, and so I ended up in Kim King's office, which is a funny story too.
Wow. So you were able, so we're talking with Dan Garrett, the author of From Poles to Pews, How America's Most Infamous Strip Club Became a Church. So you had communication with the owners, and you were able to, from here, rent it and start it out? What?
Man, so we negotiated a little bit. They kind of, this was interesting. We sat in his paneled office. He's got his attorney, his brother, his son who's in the business with him. Here I am, starting a church, and sitting on the other side of the table. And so they're negotiating. They said, well, we this is what we have to pay for our loan on it, so this is what you need to pay. And I was like, well, that's your problem. That's not my problem, And they said, well, yeah, but what this kind of property goes for. And I literally said, you have comps on a closed down strip club? Are there others in the city that were closed by the government? Anyway, we landed on a number in a friendly way. So here's what happened. I'll go ahead and tell you the truth.
Yeah.
We went down and unlocked it. My developer friend went with me, and he said, yeah, I think we can do this, but this is crazy. It's going to need electric, plumbing. I don't know, but I think we can pull this off. So I called the AJC. I didn't tell them who I was. And I just said, hey, there's this church that's going to be in the Gold Club. They jumped on this. Must have been a dead Saturday or something. I ended up on the cover of the AJC. Church going into the old Gold Club. The Associated Press picked that up. Now I'm telling you, I had barely unlocked the place.
Wow.
Associated Press picked it up. It went global. I had friends, Chicago, Washington, Boston, even missionary friends in other countries going, texting me going, what are you doing? And so I was so worried about how we were going to market this new church. And I had instantly $1 million worth of free marketing.
Wow.
So as a result of that, people from all over the city they just got that message, that vision, that picture of redemption and renovation and cleaning out the old and restoration. And I had people coming from all over. I had this guy, he walked in one day and he's got his table saw and he goes, yeah, I go to the Presbyterian Church in Roswell. And then this group of singles from Hebron Baptist Church just showed up. And then there was some mission team from Indiana. I don't even know how they found out about us. But we had 3 months, but really it ended up being 2 months to get ready because we wanted to kick off on Super Bowl Sunday, just that whole idea of kicking off and a new start and all that. So we got in there in November and December and stripped this place out, cleaned this place out, and building Sunday school walls where the VIP rooms were. I mean, it was bizarre. Who's going to bring their kids to this place? And just people from all over came and helped us, and we got there. It was quite a run, but we got there.
Dan Garrett with us. The book is called From Poles to Pews: How America's Most Infamous Strip Club Became a Church. Dan, we're running out of time. We only have about a couple of minutes left. Yeah. So you pastored the church and people came in. What was the response? And we've got to have you back and get some stories, but what was the response?
So many stories. We had every TV station there, for kickoff up from the balcony. And we had 450 people on opening day. Again, we were on the cover of the AJC 2 more times. And so, it just really took off. We stayed there a few months, 6 months. And then just for lots of reasons, we'll have to do that another day. We moved to Phipps Plaza Theaters and we stayed there 2 years. And then we moved down on Peachtree Street next to Maggiano's for 5 years.
Yeah.
And now the church and another minister, one of my old youth group members, pastors the church now. 20 years later, they're down by Georgia Tech.
That's amazing. What a story. Yeah. We got to have you back and talk about just the response of the folks and all the people that you saw and just the lives that were transformed. Dan Garrett, you got to pick up this book. Listen, we haven't even scratched the surface on this. We got to have him back. And we're going to talk to him about some other stuff later on. The book is called From Poles to Pews: How America's Most Infamous Strip Club Became a Church. You can get yours at Amazon. Get it right now. It's been out since February, and folks, no doubt, are loving it. Dan, God's blessings to you. We got to have you back, talk to you about this and some other stuff. Dan Garrett, what a great story. Yeah, well, fearless Dan Garrett, I think, is what we should call Dan. Hey, thank you so much for watching and listening to the show. Don't forget to download our podcast. This is a great one to download. Pass it along. Get the book. We're going to have him back and get some more details about his life and ministry, etc. But hey, thank you so much for doing that. Go to faithtalkatlanta.com or wherever you get your podcast. That's it for this weekend. Have a great week.